And that can cause so many problems because it will impede our ability for the ankle to flex correctly. And if the ankle doesn't flex the way it needs to, then we lose the ability to squat correctly, to catch a barbell correctly. It will impede on our ability to jump and run the way that we need to, because it will also impede on the stretch reflex of the tissue. Let's start over. What's going on, everybody? Hey, it's Opera. We got another video coming your way. For a lack of a better phrase, it is critical. We need to cease fire, so to speak, on certain fashionable trends. Anything that is deemed a high heel. Any sort of shoe that is a high heel, from a Steve Madden to a high heel with the point at the bottom. Plenty money now. They gotta go. For some reason, the idea of high heels are fashionable, and that's fine. We can accept that notion.
So I guess I'll just give you some money and you can give me these shoes. And
we need to ensure that high heels are worn a minority of the time rather than a majority of the time. And throughout this video, I will put several charts and diagrams just through this space and through here as usual, so everyone can see the damage that high heels will do to someone. And again, these high heels can range anywhere between, I have a pair of Steve Maddens that have about 1 inch to 1.5 inch heel on them, to the really long 7-inch high heels that entertainers will wear. They may be for a costume or for an occasional night out, but in general, the high heels, they need to be abolished. It's destroying our bodies. So here's why. So when we look at when someone is standing on the ground, here's the floor, here's someone right here, and we have their knee and their foot. The main issue that I want to discuss is with respect to the gastrocnemius, or the calf muscle, and the soleus. So these two tissues in through here. So we need to understand that the gastrocnemius originates on the femur and attaches down with the Achilles tendon, and then the soleus attaches right in through here on the tib-fib complex. The soleus is a one joint muscle and it only works at the ankle. The gastrocnemius works at both the knee and the ankle, so it's considered a 2-joint muscle. So when we look at the actual foot, if we draw another line, we'll call this the knee. Here's the tib-fib complex, here's the ankle, and we'll just put the foot right here. We'll call this 30 degrees. And when this heel is raised at that 30-degree angle.
Beautiful place you have here. My name is Richard James, and it's very nice to meet you.
The calf right here that originates on the femur and then the soleus, these tissues shorten significantly. And that can cause so many problems because it will impede our ability for the ankle to flex correctly. And if the ankle doesn't flex the way it needs to, then we lose the ability to squat correctly, to catch a barbell correctly. It will impede on our ability to jump and run the way that we need to, because it will also impede on the stretch reflex of the tissue. I've discussed this before in several videos. Let's review it quickly. So when we look at the stretch reflex, we have displacement down here, and then we have your force output. When the tissue stretches like this, we get a return, just like that. And the area in between these two curves is thermal heat lost in the transition. We don't get 100% of the stretch back. Let's call it 80%. So what we actually get in return is the area that's underneath this curve right here. Like that. The area underneath this curve is what we will get when the force production comes back and we look to move through our movements. And the better that this initial stretch is, let's say if it's up here, the more of a return force that we will get. If the stretch of the tissue is so overactive that the tissue only stretches out to here, we get an extremely small return force right here. That portion of the triangle right there. If an individual wears high heels for a significant amount of time throughout the day, say 6, 7, 8 hours, the gastroc and the soleus are constantly at this shortened state. And again, that will disrupt our ability to have adequate ankle flexion, our inability to land correctly. I have a video about landing mechanics that will help you become more explosive. I'll put a card for it right here. And it continues on. When we look at the amount of force that's actually placed on the toes, if we are up on the toe portion of the foot, now all the tissues between the metatarsals will start to tighten up drastically. And because those tissues tighten up, it will impede on the ability of the foot to have an adequate arch and for that fascia tissue to be strong. If the foot starts to flatten, because these tissues are so tight between the metatarsals, then that will actually create internal rotation of the femur. The femur starts to turn in. And we all know that the glute inserts down here on the femur, and the glute will help generate external rotation of the femur. So simply because the heel is raised and the tissues between the metatarsal tighten up, it will contribute to the foot flattening some. It impedes on our ability for the glutes to fire the way that they...
Today, Junior!
It impedes on the ability for the glutes to fire the way that they need to fire. High heels are so fashionable that even there's Instagram posts about it, and I'll show you right here.
I don't know what's happening to club culture, but the girlies are not wearing heels in the clubs anymore. And
so I know that this video, this post is for fun, and there's not any malicious intent to it. However, this idea of wearing heels out to the clubs at night, this is not a flex. And again, notice all the graphs and charts that I'm putting up here. There should be several of them. And this is not a flex. And the amount of low back tension that is placed onto the lumbar spine and the erectors when we wear the high heels is also significant. There's a foot condition called hallux limitus that can be contributed to the use of high heels. And I understand that correlation doesn't imply causation. I want to cover that before we discuss this foot condition. And it's when the big toe of the foot starts to internally rotate and deviate inward. And it looks like this. So if you have your foot right here and you've got your, we'll call this the big toe right here, the big toe starts to turn in drastically and it flexes inward. And because that toe will flex inward, we start to lose the ability of our body to balance. That big toe plays a huge role in our ability to stay balanced, especially if we do single-legged exercises. In addition to the big toe, we want to focus on using that big toe and pressing it down to the floor when we squat and we press the knee out to help retain the arch in the foot. If this big toe is turned inward because of this condition called hallux limitus, it impedes on the ability for us to press down onto that toe and retain the arch in the foot. Back to the idea of the arch in the foot, we can't access the glute the way that we need to. Again, I understand that high heels are fun to wear and they are fashionable for whatever reason, but they will make us sick biomechanically.
But they also had to make sure they could never run away. The operation was called hobbling.
And a torn Achilles tendon, which will be 4, 5, 6 months in a boot, just isn't worth the risk of wearing high heels on a regular basis. If an individual decides to wear high heels 2 or 3 times a month, of course, that suffices. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do, but account for that by doing stretches on the calf muscle, the soleus, and loosening up that calf tissue. Raise your toes up significantly throughout the day. Work that tibialis anterior, because if that calf starts to get overactive because we wear high heels too often, then we will start to shuffle the feet, because the muscles on the shin, on the front part of the leg, the tibialis anterior that inserts onto the first metatarsal, will become underactive, and then we will start to shuffle our feet when we walk, and that turns into even more problems. Use high heels for the minority of the time, not the majority, and wear flat shoes as much as possible. I also have another video on footwear up here that I'll leave a card for, and it will discuss the types of footwear that we can utilize throughout our daily environment as well as at the gym. And yes, that is all for this video. This isn't a fun video, again, because I understand that high heels are fashionable, but these are the mechanics behind it, it's the science behind it, and it is what it is. So that's it for this video. For those of you that have any questions, again, put the questions in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe, share this content, and we will see you next time.